Sharing the inspiration a guest at a time, this is the Beyond Barriers Unscripted Podcast.
Step back and just try to keep pushing, take it, one step at a time.
Hello and welcome to the show. My name is Randy Owen.
My name is Brandie Kubel.
For over 160 years, the American Printing House for the Blind has operated as the world's largest nonprofit organization, providing and creating accessible learning for people who are blind and low vision. Today, we are joined by former guest and digital content manager for APH, Richard Rueda.
Also joining us today from APH is Katie Frederick. Katie is the content manager for the VisionAware program. Katie and Richard were kind enough to sit down with us today and have an unscripted conversation.
We'd like to ask that if you enjoy the show, to please hit the subscribe button, share with a friend. If you have any questions or comments for the show, or you just got any ideas, or you just want to reach out and say hi, you can email Brandie or myself at bb.unscripted@gmail.com.
And now, our conversation with Katie and Richard.
So I'd like to ask a question, just kind of, it came up as Katie was talking. Katie, you mentioned that you were an executive director before, and Richard, I know you from working with you before, and you're both very driven people. What keeps you going?
Where do I start? I mean, I've been blind all my life. As a kid, I wanted to be a meteorologist, and then I wanted to be a camp director, and then I was like, my rehab counselor was like, you got to just do something, but I can't keep your case open forever. And I'm like, you're right. So you have a pretty cool job. I like helping people. So I eventually landed on counseling. And I think it's really wanting to connect people. I've always been good about resource sharing and connecting people. I've been a matchmaker to two of my good friends in Florida. So, I like connecting people. I like giving people the resources, networking. And no one ever said, hey, this is ECC, you're networking. No one ever explained that to me. And I'm probably glad of that, because I didn't learn that way, but it just happened naturally. And it's all about networking. Networking so powerful. And I think it's under-recognized in our community, and it's not as people don't see it for what it's worth is. And I think that's what I like doing, just being that person to give you the resources that you can become successful at. When I started out as a rehab counselor, I think one of the biggest challenges was getting to being able to justify to my supervisor why I'm getting you this Braille display or this thing that magnifies. And it's like, well, it shouldn't be a big deal. There's so much that we as blind people don't see that's on the wall, writing and access to media. And I'm like, why are you preventing me from getting this person this tool? And that really kind of kicked me into the advocacy that I started doing with the American Council of the Blind largely in my spare time. And I really grew into meeting blind people and connecting with professionals. And that really said, you know what, Richard, you are in the right field. Counseling and transition counseling and directing different programs and just the 5 or 6 careers I've had since 2000 alone, not even mentioning the jobs I had in college in the 90s, really put me on the path to where I do like this job. I do think it's one of many of my dream jobs, and I've always had good experiences. And now I'm saying I hope I can retire with the Connect Center, in 20 years. But I really like CareerConnect. I like the empowerment piece. I like the networking. So, Brandie, I hope that answered your question.
Excellent. I was going to ask, when did you know you're in the right field? And you kind of answered that as well.
Yeah. I'll just add to that, because it's not always pretty. It's not just the roses on the top of the grass that you're looking at through rose-colored glasses. There were times in my life I wondered, did I make the right decision? Especially when you leave one job and you go to another one. And it's not just because I don't have 3 weeks of PTO anymore, and I'm like, I got to work for a year before no. But jokingly, it was more like I think for me, it's just it's feeling that when you become comfortable. And I think one of the challenges when I worked for the state I did outreach, I did transition, I did a lot of things that were unique to my position. And at one point, I'm like, this is great. And they were bringing me back into the fold to do more counseling and less transition. And as you know, being a rehab counselor can be very sedentary. You're on the phone all day, you're sitting at your desk. And I said, there's got to be more out there than just this. And not that this is bad. And I was 36 years old and I had a state job for 9 years. And everyone's like, Richard, you're crazy for leaving a state job. You're leaving everything on the table. I said, yeah, but there's more to life than this. I'm going to leave the state. And people thought I was out of my freaking mind. And maybe I was, but I became a happier person. I did more of what I was meant to do by working in the community services section at the Lighthouse, and then going to Junior Blind and then Society for the Blind, where I was interacting with people far more directly and not just on the phone and then saying, I only have 5 minutes because I have to write up your plan for the next 5 hours. So I think the trade-off was very healthy in that respect.
Yeah, sure. So I think, again, as I said before we started, Richard and I are friends outside of work. And we met at one of those advocacy events that he talked about through the American Council of the Blind at one of our DC legislative meetings where we would go to Capitol Hill and talk to Congress. So that's kind of how we met for the first time. And I think it was, right around the time when he was leaving the state to go work for the Lighthouse. And so we've been, great friends for a long time. But I think similar to his statement about, the helping and the connecting, I love nothing more than connecting people, connecting them together, connecting them with resources, or just, educating them. Because I think, again, blind or sighted or whoever, the more that you know about other people, other things, the better off we all are, right? So, being able to provide that component. I've had several jobs before coming here to APH, and one of those was a federal job working for the federal government that I left after 5.5 years to go work for a very small nonprofit when I was the executive director of a nonprofit and was basically the only full-time staff. So that was a career leap as well for me. But I think, again, it is those pieces of, we talk now about the different, transition programs and things that are available for youth. And, Richard and I didn't really have those back in our days. We had some, a few programs maybe here and there. We'd go and do some stuff and we'd talk some about careers, but not this, it wasn't so focused. Right. And so I think for us, we, and I'm not speaking for him, but I think we kind of had to go find our path and we had to go find our way, and we had to learn through the networking and the falling down and getting back up. After college, I went to college and received a degree in communications, and then interned with the federal government. And then once that internship ended, I was unemployed for 9 months. And those are 9 months that I will never forget, because talk about some stressful times. That's an emotional time when you walk into some of those interviews and you just know, you're like, oh, this person is totally, they don't know how to handle a person who's blind, or they're just totally, not able to handle that. And so, but you still go through the interview and handle yourself as you would in any other interview. And so I think all of my rambling to say that, I think for me, it's the connecting, the helping, I've been there. I've been blind all my life as well. And so I grew up in a small town, went to public school, but I didn't know a lot of other people who were blind. I really didn't meet any people who were blind until I was, more of an adult in terms of other, blind adults. And so I kind of had to figure things out on my own. Or, I had great parents who, still back me up and support me to this day. But in terms of advocacy and things like that, they gave me an excellent foundation, but, I had to learn and do these things myself and get what I needed. So I think, all of this ties together to put me in a position here at APH in the Connect Center where, now I can take my experiences, my skills, my communications aspect, and kind of put it all together to do a lot of this outreach and things. We're going to be traveling here coming up soon to present at some conferences and stuff. And we're all just really excited about that, I think, to get back out into that networking space, to really, make those connections. I mean, online has been great for the, the technology and stuff, but there's still, in my opinion, nothing quite like that face-to-face connection, right? That in-person, oh, hi, I'm Richard. I'm with APH. You want to talk about our products and services. So that's
there's nothing
me.
more challenging than being in a Zoom room and being an exhibitor. It's like, yeah, you want to jump out of your skin. Coming back to in-person conferences is pretty really cool. I just got back from the CSUN Technology Conference in Anaheim, and man, that was just so cool to see so many people. Even though we're masked and we're being safe, it was just awesome to be in a room with so many people who were vaccinated and who wanted to share and learn and handshake and hug, and people in our own community, blind professionals, blind technology people, from Amazon on down to everywhere. It was just neat. So
let me ask you, Richard. So you went to your first convention or conference post-pandemic. Were you a little nervous? Were you a little anxious? Was it awkward?
So let me answer that by saying that, as you all know, I travel a lot. I travel often, before and during the pandemic. But yeah, but I still have, as a competent traveler as I am, I do have a lot of travel anxiety when I think about, okay, I have a new guide dog. Is he going to do well? This was his first big, show, and he did well. But it was more of like, okay, how many Ubers am I have to schedule before I get there? Because of the dog thing. So I think, therefore I worry. That's my motto. So I worry about every little detail, and sometimes I over worry. I admit that, but it really worked out. I was saying earlier to Katie that the Hilton Hotel that the APH staff were in, which was across the courtyard from the Marriott, was just this big giant nightmare because it was like spatially just open, tall, like 4-story ceilings before you got up to like the next floor, and just waterfalls and all these other external noises, and you had no place to there was no beacon or way to really identify. So and it was really dark in there for this low vision guy. I'm looking for any cue to kind of line me up, and that wasn't there. You were like in this big dungeon. So I really had to be calm and be focused. And then when we went over to the exhibit hall, it's huge. It's like the size of like just a huge building, and there's close to 100, if not more, vendors in there with their wares and all these talking devices and braille embossers. So it's sensory overload. But if you manage it and you say, okay, this is my goal for the morning, for the afternoon, and you chunk it out that way, it's manageable. It was fun. Like I'm going to go to conferences today. I'll go to the exhibits tomorrow. I have booth duty on Tuesday night. You just kind of manage it through your moment by moment expectations. And if you don't look at it throughout the whole week and try to worry, I think it's easy to do, because we, like Katie said, we have a ton of conferences between her and I think every week we're on the road. I mean, she's in San Antonio, New Orleans. I'm in Kentucky, Indiana, and DC,
West Virginia. Yeah,
West
we're all
Virginia,
over.
Wichita, Kansas. Yeah.
Yeah. And we love that. I mean, that's what we love. I mean,
yes, but I love traveling. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna stay at home and cry. I'm gonna
Right.
do it. I'm gonna be pissed off
Yeah.
sometimes and I got lost. But you know what? I'd rather be living that way than not doing it at all.
How about you, Katie? How's the traveling going with you?
Yeah. So I actually, before coming to APH at my last job, one of the final things I did before leaving was I went to a conference that we had, and it was very small, like less than half attendance, but they wanted to get people together. And so some people came, and I love traveling. I've traveled ever since I was little with my, with my family. It's never been a big deal to hop on a plane and go somewhere. Until like now it's a big deal, but I mean, in all seriousness, there was some extra anxiety for me. I think just, I think when traveling was done for me more consistently, you kind of get in a routine, like, all right, I'm at a new hotel, blah, blah, blah. But having not gone anywhere in a year and a half, that first time in a new hotel, my guide dog was like, whoa, new place, like, let's sniff and okay, he did well. But that first day, I'm like, wow, this is a lot. Like, this is a lot of, again, as Richard said, like the sensory overload of, okay, everyone's in a mask and I have to learn this new space. And it was a bit stressful. But I say all that to say that, again, I think one of the things that I've learned is, throughout traveling and going to different conferences is the whole, getting lost or not being sure. That's not a blindness thing necessarily. That's a people thing, right? I mean, there are plenty of conferences where I've gone where sighted people are just like, well, even the volunteers that I'm with are like, well, I'm going to look at some signs and we'll figure out where we need to go. So again, I say this to encourage people to, don't be afraid. Don't be discouraged if you get lost. We all get lost. And just, again, as Richard said, try to keep calm and, use services that might be available to you. If you have something like an iPhone or Android, you can use things like Be My Eyes or Ira, which are visual interpreting services. And those are, again, just more tools to have in the toolbox in addition to your O&M skills and your advocacy and all the other skills that we bring, but they all make up our nifty toolboxes that we can pull out of any time and have those tools at our disposal. But, I think traveling, especially for those of us who use guide dogs, there are some certain, we have to now fill out some forms and things when we travel or put in our dog's ID number and different things because of, transportation rules and people trying to take fixed service dogs on airplanes and other things. So that's another step in the process. But again, if you break it down, if you are someone who becomes anxious easily, maybe break it down and start doing, okay, I'm traveling in 10 days. Before then I need to do X tasks a day, or maybe one day I'll pack my dog food, or maybe the next day I'll start packing up some of my chargers or something, just so you can break it down a little bit. And so it's maybe not everything at once. And the planning tip is good.
So there's now new rules when traveling with guide dogs on public transportation?
Yes, for airplanes, especially. So they've been in effect for a year at least, I think. Yeah, I think since last March. And so when you travel with a trained service animal or guide dog, you now have to fill out a form. Each airline is different, although I'm hearing that more and more are doing an approach where you can fill out the form once and then you're given an ID number for your dog that you can add to your profile, kind of like if you have an awards account or anything like that, you can just put that in your profile and it kind of stays with your dog, so you don't have to keep filling out the forms. But yes, this is a result of some individuals trying to take their so-called service animals on an airplane that's not a legitimate trained animal to perform
and
tasks.
They would just act up and make it
the animals would misbehave and cause all kinds of havoc. So unfortunately, a few of us have to pay the price for some people's misdeeds.
Yes.
So
it's very unfortunate.
I want to go back really quick and talk about the conference and in the context that one of the newer technologies that we saw this week, although it wasn't at the Hilton, is Good Maps, and it's indoor navigation. And it's part of
APH, not directly, but it is part of our company. And
you are aware of, I think Mike May, Brandie, you've heard of him, Sendero.
Yes.
He's up in Reno. Yeah. So he's part of that whole group. And so they had that set up at the hotel so you could independently through your phone, you scan vertical, and they have the rooms labeled the Platinum 1, Platinum 2 registration and exhibit hall and those types of things. I didn't use it as much as I wanted to this week because once I got the orientation down, I just kind of went over and asked. They had a lot of volunteers this week, a lot of CSUN staff that made it really helpful. I wish they were at the Hilton, but that's
Seems to be happy to hear that Mike May is doing that.
He is. He's doing well with it.
And they're really trying. The neat thing about Good Maps, from my understanding, because I'm a tech nerd, what can I say? But my understanding about Good Maps is that it's a really, I think a lot of us who've been around for a while are like, oh, another another thing, right? Another app, another product coming to the market. But I think the neat thing about Good Maps is that it's using mainstream technology. It's not, it's using an iPhone, but it's using lidar, which is a new technology. So essentially, what happens is some iPhones have what's called a lidar scanner. And so it enables people to, take pictures and do different things. And that's how they're getting the data. So for a business, for example, what I like about this is it's not like someone coming in saying, hey, like, again, nothing against like Blind Square and thing. No, Force, what's it called? Is it Blind Square? The one that had the beacons?
Nearby Explorer.
Yeah.
Indoor.
Yes. So yeah, the indoor navigation. There have been some variations thereof, right? Some people had some where you had to put beacons around, and that was, then the beacons would fall off. You had to pay to maintain the beacons. Again,
put batteries in them.
Yeah, great technology for its time, and it serves a purpose. I'm not saying it doesn't, but now if we have this new technology to enable someone to go into a business and literally map it out, and there's really no cost to the business. They don't have to install anything or whatever. I mean, I'm sure there's costs because the company is trying to make money, but it's not so much that maintenance piece of okay, I have to do this special technology for the blind or whatever, right? It's more mainstream, and so I think I'm encouraged by this development is and just the more enhancements that we have for indoor navigation, because that's the tricky part, right? You get somewhere through GPS or you're traveling and you get there and then you're like, okay, I just want to go to the Apple store, right? Where might that be?
Where is the Apple store? Exactly.
Right.
Right. And so I'm looking forward to seeing how this will play out in the near future.
Richard, share a story of inspiration, please.
Well, and again, that's a big question, but I'll draw on something that happened this week that was totally unexpected. And again, here I am at the CSUN Assistive Technology Conference. It's March 2022, and you want to be a team player. We have the Connect Center, then you have APH. We're separate, but we're part of the same agency. And we're doing a lot in the Connect Center. I think Katie would agree, to really know our colleagues on the other side, know how the museum works, know how the product people work, how they interact with the ex-official trustees. I mean, APH is so big, and there's so many departments, and you want to be cool with your. And I didn't really know a lot of the other guys that are there. I didn't know Betsy Ann. I didn't know Leslie. I didn't know the. Leslie up in Washington, Scott, all these guys who are doing different things for the same mission. And you go there, you're like, I don't know these guys. Am I going to get along with these colleagues? And, at the end of the weekend, we had so much fun and we had, parties and just really cool things. But so Jim Sullivan, who Katie knows is works for APH, and he's been in the field for years, and he's done a lot. And he called me a couple of times before the conference going, hey, what is your role? How are you going to help us at the booth? Just getting to know me, because he didn't know me. And so it was neat getting to meet Jim this week at the booth and other people and did booth duty. And as the week went on and we kind of share stories and laugh and share experiences, there were large parts of the time I would be gone from the booth. And every time I'd come back to the booth, people were like, Richard, we're impressed with you. What did I do? I was gone. I wasn't in session. You know too many people. Everyone keeps coming by asking for you. I'm like, oh, well, it's because I lived here. No, but you got people in Florida asking for you, and Georgia asking for you. And it made me feel like cool that people are singing my praises, even though I just connected them. It was either through CareerConnect or past jobs or stuff through the advocacy groups that I helped them out with indirectly or directly, and people were asking for me, and it was just I wanted to cry, and I felt like wow, and it kind of validated me through my coworkers knowing more and feeling more secure around me, and not just wondering who this guy was that they hired. Not that they felt that, but I just felt really welcomed, and they embraced that, and they joked, you had another fan club come by today. It was embarrassing, but humbling. It was cool. And I don't know if that's inspiring, but it was just kind of neat to hear that people come up, and I didn't prompt them. I didn't say, hey, go tell these guys I'm there. I just said, I'll be at CSUN, but it was just really, really cool.
And
you are the networking guru.
You are. And
I think between Katie and I know like everybody in the United States who's blind. So, I'm kidding.
Yeah, that's right. Yep. Uh-huh.
And we all need to, and we all, regardless of who we are, regardless of how confident we seem, we all have that little voice in our head that says, you can't do this. We all need that pat on the shoulder that says, you got this. Because we all get nervous. We all have that bit of anxiety.
My O&M instructor would say, you're your own worst critic. And that's true, right? Like we all are. I mean, it's something that I still struggle with.
And it was nice this week to talk with, my colleagues, Leslie, Scott, Ty, and I were like the blind people, all with dogs, and we're confident travelers, and we're all just complaining to each other at the bar at night going, God, this hotel sucks, but we're going to do it again in the morning, but man, I hate this hotel. And it was because it was like for all of us, it was the hardest hotel we've ever been in. And again, we're all good travelers. So, to have that camaraderie where you can talk to fellow coworkers who are blind or disabled who get your frustration at that micro level is empowering. And you're not the only one suffering through this 6 o'clock in the morning. I got to take my dog out and then get through the hotel. There's no concierge. Everything isn't, the Starbucks isn't open. You don't have any sound cues, and you're like in a funnel, a vacuum. And it's like, oh my God, dog, can you wait to 8 o'clock? Or no, the dog's got to go out. So, having those little moments and having people to share them with at that level is cool. And it's like, all right, I can talk to these guys later about it over lunch and they'll get it.
Thank you. Katie?
Well, okay. I will think of something that I've shared this before, but I don't think with any of you, but I guess I don't know how inspiring it is, but it's certainly an impactful story in my life. So when I was 16 years old, I received my first guide dog, and I went through training, 28 days, flew out to California on my own. My parents put me on a plane, and I sat down and sobbed and said, what am I doing? Hopefully I'm doing the right thing here. And went to California, received my first dog, and then returned home. And a couple months later, it was right around the time of 9/11, 2001, actually, that I was having some real second thoughts about, I'd been home with my dog for a few months. It was just kind of when you bring a new dog home, there's always what they call the transition time. And it can sometimes be a bit rough. You and this new dog are learning how to communicate with each other. And then in my case, I had, family, and I was with my parents at the time, of course, because I was still in high school. So I was dealing with all of that. And I was like, do I really want to keep working with this dog? Like, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of responsibility at 16. My dog was at the time, she was a handful, but she was the dog I needed at the time. But, at first she was kind of a lot, and she was a puppy. She was 19 months old. And so I, again, kind of had that moment of doubt of, do I really want to keep putting in all this hard work with her? And is it really worth it? And I had an orientation mobility instructor. My O&M instructor at the time came and said, okay, I'm going to take your dog in my car. But I want you to walk the route to school with your cane, and just, to see, what you think, if you really want to give up this dog and not have a guide dog anymore. And so I did that. And when I got to school with my cane, I got to the sidewalk, and my instructor came up to me, and I heard him with the dog, and I said, yep, I'll take that harness now. And, I'm smiling, just sitting here, just even telling this, because, that, he, through his actions, inspired me to keep working and to keep pushing, to keep, not give up, put in that hard work, and, I worked with that dog for 6 years. She got me through 2 years of high school and 4 years of college, and then she developed cancer. But she taught me a lot about me, who I was, what I could handle, and just again, I think that thing of, yeah, this is tough right now. You're struggling. This is hard for you, but are you just going to throw in the towel because you've had some setbacks? No, and so I still, this was, over 20 years ago now, and I still am getting a little teary eyed just because it was such an impactful thing for me to go through, and for him to do that, to think that way for me, like, you sure you want to give up on this? So I guess I would end with, if you're going through a tough time right now, or you're facing some challenges, step back and just try to keep pushing, take it, one step at a time to get through.
What is something that you would say to someone or a loved one that is new to blindness?
Visit VisionAware. No.
Yeah.
I would say, and I'd say, talk to people, find an adult who is blind, find a mentor, get connected. Don't go about it alone. Don't let your family tell you that you can't do things, whether it's, your family, your spouse, your children, and just, talk to people. If you think you need to get counseling, but really talk to blind people who are blind, who are parents, who are siblings, who are employed, and who are successful. It's easy to think, oh, poor me, I'm the only one. But I think the more that you're willing to connect with people, the better off you are. I had a teacher of the visually impaired in Georgia this week going, hey, I need you to talk to my nephew. He's losing his vision, and I can't talk to him like the way you can. Can I put you in touch with him? I said, sure. He used to work for NASA and had all these great jobs, and now he's at home on the couch and doesn't think he can do it. So I said, let's talk. So any way you can connect people to people, again, that's where I think our strength is, personally and professionally.
What I would say to someone who is new to blindness or vision loss, I think one of the most important things that we cannot say enough is your life is not over. You can and should take the time to go through the emotions that you're feeling, whether that's grief, anger, all of the above, shock, everything. But, when people would call me in my past job and say, oh, I've just lost my vision, or I'm having trouble seeing, but I really like to do X, or I really want to read the newspaper, or, I would say, well, have you thought about doing this or trying this magnifier? Or do you know that you can get the newspaper through your telephone or through, a talking service? So again, just helping people with those resources. But back to, someone who's new to that, I would say, again, feel your feelings, experience your emotions, and, then go out and find ways to adapt your life as you need to keep on living and to keep on doing the things that you want and need to do, because we all know that it can be done. Is it always easy every day? No, but we can do it. And we need to be, helping those who are new, figure it out as well.
Oh my gosh. Oh, you just gave me another question. So every night before I go to bed, I ask myself the same question every night. And I've been asking this question for the last 25 years that I've been in the blindness rehabilitation game. Have you helped somebody today? Have you helped somebody in their journey today? And if the answer is yes, then I can go to sleep peacefully, knowing that I've done my job. So do either of you have a question that you ask yourself every night before you go to bed?
I think more for me, it's more of like, how do I want to live my life as a motto? My motto is like, yeah, I think you're right, Brandie. It's like, you always I always do want to make sure I'm doing as much as I can. For me, it's like, it's not that if I help someone, if it's more of like, have I taken time for myself? Because I can be a workaholic. Katie knows this. People tease me. Even last night at dinner, they're like, Ty's like, Richard works a lot. and I'm trying to be better. So I'm like, have I taken time for myself today? And that's more of like me finding that time to, okay, did I read a book? Did I play with my dog enough? Did I walk him enough? Did I log off, or at a sufficient time and do something unrelated? Because that was a part of one of my jobs about 8 years ago, before Society for the Blind. I was working a residential program, which I liked, but it was literally all my life. It was 80-hour weeks and 100 in the summer when you're managing the program and you live on site. And I was becoming unhealthy and unhappy because I didn't have the time and I was being expected to do more. And that's, that this is probably something you might be interested in hearing. I put myself out of the job market. I'd been working at the time. I was 45, 41. And I'd been working since I was 16. So 25 years, right? Never not working in high school, working fast food, working through college. It took me 9 years to go through college because I wanted to work. And I do a lot of that stuff into my transition talks, Brandie. I always talk about my first job, worst job, fast food, and college wasn't the crux. It was like, well, at some point you got to go to college. And once I got to college, my mom's like, you got to finish college. And I'm like, but you guys didn't. And we started having those conversations because I am the first person in my family to go to college. And I knew I wanted to do something with my life and I needed to get a degree to really go somewhere in the world. And so I did, but I worked 2 or 3 jobs at a time. I'd be up at 6 a.m, home at midnight because I was working. And it was fun. It was crazy. And I was never home. So when 2015 came along, and I remember talking to Katie about this at the time, going, I'm not happy. And Katie, you may not remember this, but you're like, you better find a job before you leave your job. And I'm like, I don't care anymore. I just don't want to work. And I was just having a pity party. But I realized, well, I got smart about it. I did give them notice and they let me have 6 months notice, which was generous. In reality, it was 3 months, but that's when I gave my real notice. And I said, I'm going to have fun this year. I'm going to travel. I'm going to do things. And I did. I had savings. I had sold my condo, moved to Sacramento. I went to Italy, right? I went to Hawaii for a month. I went to the El Paso Islands and I had a blast in 2016. And I moved to Sacramento. I didn't know I was going to get Careers Plus, but I did know Shari Racer, and she knew I was leaving. I said, hey, I'm moving to Sacramento. If anything comes open, let's talk. And she was good about that. I will say that about Shari Racer at Society for the Blind. She really was there for me and at a professional level. Just, come to me when you're ready. And I did. I talked to her in August and I said, here's my thought for a program, which will eventually be called Careers Plus. And, that was the craziest time of my life. And I had support from people I think would support me. My mom's like, yeah, we understand. Do what you need to do. And I survived and I moved. And, then I said, I'm ready. I'm refreshed. And I needed that sabbatical. So I put myself out of the job market, which I don't advise unless, especially if you have kids and, mouths to feed, unless you won the lottery. But it was, as I reflect upon that now and in this conversation, it was long overdue, and it really made me focus on my work-life balance. And that's what Society for the Blind gave me, work-life balance, because it was a fun job. It was good in that, hey, do what you need to do. If you need to work weekends and evenings, take the mornings off. So there was really no demand there as long as you did your job and you did it well. And APH is really supporting. They're doing the same thing. I just tend to go, there's more I can do. Why am I not doing this in this space? So that's where Katie and Elia come along and go, hey, Richard, no, you don't have to log on at 4 a.m. I'm trying to not get back into those habits and being mindful. So that's kind of my motto is, have I taken time for myself?
I think for me, I don't ask a question per se, but one thing I do try to do, and I don't know that I do it every single day. I do it throughout the day sometimes too, but I think of like 1 to 3 things that I'm grateful for. And I know, we've heard about things like gratitude journals, and some people write them down and things like that. I don't do that, but I do try to consciously think of, what am I grateful for today? And it can be something as simple as, oh my gosh, it's Ohio, it's the winter. We haven't seen the sun in a week, but it's shining today. It's not today because it's raining, but it was yesterday and it was beautiful. And, I have a beautiful black lab, snoring at my feet, and he's amazing. And he helps me out with so many things. I'm so grateful for him. Or, hearing what's going on around our world, in places like Ukraine that are dealing with the war. And, I'm grateful to be safe. It can be little things like that maybe are or not so little when but I just try to really consciously every day think of, again, that 1 to 3 things that I'm just grateful for that day. And that's kind of how I, it's so easy, I think, to think, oh gosh, my computer's being a piece of crap today, or, I'm not feeling it today, or, whatever, person X is being annoying or something. But just trying to step back and say, yeah, that might have happened, but what else, what's going well? And that takes effort for sure. But it's something I'm really trying to work on, because again, it's, for me anyway, it's easy to go into that kind of that negative space, and it can be unpleasant there. And so just trying to I try to do that every day and focus on some positive.
Katie, are you on social media?
I am. Yes.
What do you got?
I'm on Facebook and Twitter. So I have personal accounts on both. And I will, if Richard wants to connect us, if he follows you or something, we can connect. I also have LinkedIn. Sorry, I have LinkedIn as well.
And that's Katie Frederick?
Yes, it's KATIE FREDERICK. And then, yes, APH, we have at the Connect Center, we have Facebook pages for all of our sites, CareerConnect, Family Connect, and VisionAware on Facebook. And then our Twitter is
APH
Connect Center.
Yeah. And I retweet a lot of their stuff.
Yes, yeah.
And where can we find you, Richard?
So on Twitter, it's at Richard Rueda, first name, last name. And same on Facebook, Richard Rueda, and then on LinkedIn as well. RUEDA.